Hi all, welcome back to Sunshine the City Show. Max your host, good to meet you. Today I want to discuss with you China and the impact that they're having in the world with the coronavirus, investing and buying out the West and buying out farms, their raw products and shipping it into China. Now, when the Iron Wall came down and when people wouldn't have anything to do with them because they were communists, and that Iron Wall came down, everyone wanted to invest with them. And at first it seemed very great. President Xi wasn't there, so there was 10 years of bliss. And, you know, even companies in New Zealand were encouraged to go there, put their business in there. Unfortunately, you're only allowed to have 50% of your business in there. You had to co-partnership with another company, which would be similar and would be learning from you all your secrets and technology. So that was the initiative of it. And the impact was that we were presumably have access to 1 billion people in the world. We'd have access to their market. So with Anchor Milk, seemed like a great idea to get in there. But then they started to buy our cows, started to buy our raw products and farmland, that kind of thing, started to set up dairy factories in their own country. And they bought ports right by the farms, and so the middle income jobs like freezing works, that kind of thing, timber, taking the raw product of timber, the timber mills, that kind of thing, those middle income jobs weren't working because all this stuff was being shipped off. So then we had freezing works closing down, timber mills closing down. We were wondering why. And that was because we were investing in China and allowing them to buy our stuff. And we were told that it wasn't the government buying it, but Miles Kwok, an exiled billionaire, who was lucky to get out of China. They've tried to kill him. Apparently there's been a lot of guys that have been told to give their money back, billionaires in China. And if they're going to give you a loan in China and you're a Chinese billionaire, they'll give you a loan, 4 billion. You take it from the development bank, bring it to the Chinese bank or Hong Kong bank, but probably the Chinese bank, then Hong Kong bank to get the real money. And it's like they've got a money printing scam going on with development banks. So the development bank just prints money, then invests. And so when you're in another country and you're getting a loan from China, that's nobody's money because it's just been freshly printed, and then there's no asset behind it. And if you defaulter on your loan, then they come and take your resource, and that's how they're getting money. And one of the other ways he said they were getting money is all these people that were coming and they're investing in China. They would invest and then they would be in the hotels and they'd put up cameras, spy cameras and the TVs, that kind of thing, honey traps in the hotels. So if the guy was going down and saw some pretty looking girls, took them back to the hotel, then they would see what was going on, then they could blackmail them, get money out of them that way. And they do all sorts of things to spy on their own, to spy on the foreigners that are there, trying to catch them out in their sins. So they're talking about how they're able to control the economy. They're saying that the economy has collapsed. All the banks, there's no money there, completely no money there, but they're still investing, they're still buying hotels and everything else. And that's like even with the Chinese camps, they were using the organs of the prisoners, using that as an industry. So that was an industry that people were buying organs. I mean, they'll do anything they can to make money. They were building Chinese cities. This is another thing that went on. They were building actual ghost cities. So when the Wuhan virus was released from the lab, because it wasn't released from the market, that's for sure. When the virus was released in the lab, then they had demonstrations of on TV that were like ghost cities. They had ghost cities there already. So we didn't know what was real. And then they're setting up people to fall down flat on the street. So I'm thinking that these people were falling flat in the street in these ghost cities. So these guys supposedly were Chinese guys in a camera society were able to hop round and film everything and then went missing. And this young doctor died, that kind of thing. There was another young doctor recently in Ojai. They said that she had died of virus and she died of lung cancer. So the figures have been rigged throughout the world. So for some reason, China needed to hide the debt that they had, create this virus. But now the world is saying that they want to charge a bankrupt country money for the virus. So they'll freshly print that money out again, possibly, and send it to you. Because at the end of the day, there is no money there. So they desperately need Hong Kong because they need those Hong Kong dollars because it's a real dollar. And so far they haven't. So fraudulently, the Chinese bank is the main culprit. There's other banks backing them up that are swindling the money. And we would call this money laundering. So you have in the Hong Kong bank, they're invested in there. So they're real when they're paying back. So with the billionaires, when they ask for the money back, it goes to the leaders and goes swindled back into their leaders, basically. And so they keep the population quiet with a social credit score system so that they can monitor them. And if they get too crazy, they'll put them in the camp, and that way they can control the people. And with the Hong Kong trying to take over that country because they need the economy, they need the Hong Kong bank fully under their control, but they're saying that the Hong Kong bank, the Chinese bank, and a few others, they've got a development bank, are all under their control right now, and it's kind of like a mafia thing of money. So they're saying the Chinese bank in particular, it always has its blinds down, it's always printing money, and the development bank's pretty much the same thing. So what they do is they get people from the development bank with bundles of money, as I was saying before, 3 to 4 billion, and we'll give you 20%, and they deliver that money to the other bank somehow. For some reason, that's how they have to do it. For some reason, they can't do a bank transfer. It has to be physically given. So it's kind of a big money laundering scam. It's the biggest in the world. It's been buying out the West. I mean, even in pretty much in lockdown with the cheap prices, China was buying out hotels. They're talking about the riots of Antifa, and they're saying that that's also happening, that there's a guy called Blasco, I think his name is, in New York, that's putting in Antifa on purpose, putting in thugs, and they're making these places unlivable. Then the people leave. They sell up at a cheap price because Antifa's there destroying their businesses, sell it at a cheap price, and probably China's in on it as well. And then they buy that company back. They buy the company, they get Antifa to go somewhere else, go into the next building and start to destroy that. And so they're using Antifa to buy out the middle of America, buying out New York. Why? I don't know why Trump is allowing this to happen. I mean, if he could talk to Miles Kwok and have some sort of idea of how China operates in the South Pacific. They're talking about tensions increasing in the Pacific, Chinese boats, that kind of thing. China's definitely testing in the Pacific. They've learned that by investing, by buying, giving $1 million, which is easy to do because they just print the money, they can buy out these islands and just get the raw resources. So if they can get those raw resources at no cost, and then they can mass produce the stuff. So at the end of the day, China mass produces everything. So America found that they had no medical supplies because everything was made in China. And so when China released the virus to the world, then it was holding back on the medical supplies and then selling it at a premium price to America and making money that way. So they were making money out of the virus because they had no more money. Everything was going to roll and bankrupt itself. So the Wuhan virus, to me, is kind of an excuse, kind of also a kind of a Wuhan, what would you call it, a vaccine COVID situation as well. So they're probably in on that. So they have the New World Order, who are looking at a beast scenario, mark of the beast scenario, where they give us all a COVID vaccine. And so they're probably getting money from them as well. So China are working for themselves, though. They don't really care about the New World Order. New World Order are just a bunch of dummies that are willing to invest in them to get their vaccine throughout the world, because they're in a desperate situation as well, because they're being done for the Epstein Island honeypot over here. Then they've got the Chinese honeypot, where if you're a tourist even and you're caught in a hotel, and then you come back to your wife, then we want some money from you for you've been a bit of a naughty boy in China when you were visiting, because you were seeing some of the girls and we filmed you in the hotel. And so they're using a money trap system in China, same kind of money trap system that was happening on Epstein Island, but it was with minors. In China, it would be a situation of trying to get the businessmen who are investing. So these investors are investing in these countries, giving away their technology, and then they're getting bankrolled for what they were doing in the hotels, because they could lose their wife, that kind of thing. So they're talking about a lot of people have been swindled out of money, but China is doing everything it can to keep their economy going. So that's why they're getting the raw products, raw resources, and of course we've got these ghost cities. We've said before, these ghost cities are worth nothing. The buildings are falling down. They're not worth anything, but they were using that to build up an empire. So in Auckland, for instance, they're doing the same kind of thing. They're investing in these buildings, and then another investor comes along, and they build up the prices. So when our house prices have gone up 10, 20-fold, and that's how the Chinese are making money. And so if they can sell it to a real investor at 20% more, then they can get out of it possibly at some stage, and that could be how they make money. And then they could do a riot, that kind of thing, make all these house prices all dirt cheap, and then buy them out and reinvest and make themselves more wealthy. So that's another way to get wealth back into China. It does look like a good plan on China's part, that this is the only path that they can take. So that is why they have this terrible credit score system of monitoring. They have a system of monitoring the children as well, and education, so they can focus on their studies 12 hours a day. They have a metal monitor around the head. And yeah, it's just a bit of an eye-opener really, how China have really fooled the world, money laundered the world. And yet banking, that kind of thing, are always looking for the little guy who might have money laundered, that kind of thing. Because if you send, in New Zealand, if you put $1,000 in another bank, $1,000 every month, because I wanted to pay off a loan in a bank, and I didn't want the other bank to know that I had a loan at this bank, and so I was taking $1,000 out from the bank every month, and they were saying that that would be considered money laundering. So yet the little guy at the bottom can be considered money laundering, but China can get away with this big money laundering, because they all think in New Zealand we're into dope selling, that kind of thing, and it's like, well, there is an element of it up north, Northland, that kind of thing, but I don't live in Northland. And for sure, the young people, they seem to be all into drugs, but I'm not that young. Anyway, thank you all. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. Hope that clears up some light. This guy's name is Miles Kwok. I'll drop a link into my channel. You can have a watch of it. Very interesting. Thank you all.